The night was quiet, but not silent. Cars moved in the distance, and streetlights hummed above the cracked pavement. The air smelled faintly of rain, though no drops had fallen yet. In the middle of this city, a young man rode his old motorbike with a square delivery bag strapped to the back. His name was Arjun. He was 24, tired and restless, but he kept going because there was no other choice. Arjun worked as a food delivery rider. Every night he carried boxes of fried noodles, steaming curries, and cold sodas to people who never looked him in the eye. To them, he was invisible. To the world, he was just another worker lost in the endless flow of traffic. His dreams were small, pushed aside by rent, bills, and the constant need to survive. Yet deep inside, he always felt he was meant for more. He never knew why, but a voice in his chest whispered it every night. The city around him was alive in its own way. Neon signs blinked red and blue against wet sidewalks. Stray dogs barked in alleys. Somewhere above, a train rattled across an old bridge. But none of it mattered to Arjun. His world was narrowed down to one delivery at a time, one street at a time, one tired heartbeat at a time. He told himself it was temporary, though he had been saying that for 3 years. On this night, something different waited for him. He did not know it yet. All he knew was that his phone buzzed with the next order. He sighed, adjusted his helmet, and drove down a narrow lane lined with closed shops. Most of the shutters were down, painted with fading graffiti. The street was empty except for a flickering lamp at the corner. He parked the bike in front of a tall apartment building. The food inside the bag was still warm, but he could already smell the garlic seeping through the box. He carried it toward the lobby, but his eyes caught something strange on the ground. At first he thought it was a toy, maybe dropped by a child. A small object lay near the steps, shining faintly under the yellow light. It was no bigger than his hand. Its surface glimmered with shifting colors, like oil floating on water. The sight stopped him. Arjun bent down and picked it up. The object was smooth and warm, almost like it had its own pulse. It did not feel like plastic, and it did not feel broken. For a moment he considered leaving it there, but curiosity held him. He turned it over in his hand. No buttons. No seams. Just a strange, perfect shape that seemed to glow more brightly when he touched it. His chest tightened, as if his body already knew this was not something ordinary. He looked around. The street was still empty. No one else was near. Only the sound of his bike ticking as it cooled from the ride. He slipped the object quickly into his pocket, almost afraid someone might appear and take it away. Then he continued to the door and pressed the buzzer. A tired voice answered, and he handed over the food. The customer barely looked at him before shutting the door. For Arjun, that part was normal. But the weight in his pocket was not. As he walked back to his bike, the object pulsed faintly. He stopped under the streetlight and pulled it out again. The colors shifted between blue and silver, like waves on the ocean. He felt a strange calm when he looked at it. At the same time, he felt watched, as if invisible eyes were on him. He shivered and quickly placed it back into his pocket. For the first time in months, his delivery job did not feel like the most important thing in his life. Something had changed, though he did not know what. Arjun drove to the next stop, but his thoughts stayed with the glowing object. Every red light on the road felt longer. Every glance from a stranger made him uneasy. He wondered if the toy belonged to someone, or if it was even safe to keep. He tried to convince himself it was just a piece of decoration, maybe some fancy gadget he had never seen before. But his heart told him something else. It whispered that this night would not end like the others. When his shift finished, he returned to his small one-room apartment. The walls were cracked, the paint was old, and the fan made more noise than wind. He placed the delivery bag on the floor and sat heavily on his bed. His legs ached from hours of riding. Yet he did not reach for his dinner. He reached into his pocket. The object was still glowing softly, like it had been waiting for him. He placed it on the table. The light from the ceiling bulb seemed dull compared to the soft glow of the toy. It looked alive, almost breathing. Arjun leaned closer, his eyes reflecting the shimmer. He reached out and touched it with one finger. The surface shifted slightly, as if responding to his presence. His breath caught in his throat. The city outside was the same as always. Cars moved. People argued. Dogs barked in the alley. But inside this room, something extraordinary had begun. A food delivery rider had picked up a strange toy from the ground. And that simple act was about to rewrite his life forever. The night stretched on. The city outside his window had fallen into its usual rhythm of noise and silence. For most people, it was an ordinary night. For Arjun, it was the beginning of something he could not yet understand. The strange object lay on the small wooden table, glowing softly in the dim light. Arjun sat on the edge of his bed, staring at it. His chest rose and fell quickly, as though his body already knew this thing was not safe, yet his heart refused to let go. Curiosity was stronger than fear. He leaned closer. The colors shifted across its surface, flowing like liquid metal. Blue, green, silver, and then gold. Each shade pulsed in slow rhythm, like a heartbeat. Arjun raised a hand, hesitated, then touched it with one finger. The moment his skin made contact, the glow grew brighter. The room filled with thin lines of light, spreading across the walls like veins of fire. Symbols appeared in the air. Floating shapes he had never seen before. Curves and angles that seemed alive. Arjun gasped and stumbled back, nearly falling off the bed. His breath came hard. His eyes widened. He wanted to believe it was a trick of the light. A projection. Maybe some kind of advanced toy from another country. But deep down, he knew. This was not human technology. The air itself seemed heavier, as though the room was no longer his own. The symbols hovered, rotating slowly, casting strange shadows. Some were circles within circles. Others were sharp, jagged marks that shifted each time he blinked. He felt a strange pressure in his head, like the symbols were trying to press into his mind. He shut his eyes tight, shaking his head. No. This cannot be real. His voice cracked, but the lights did not fade. When he opened his eyes again, the object pulsed once more. A soft hum filled the room. It was not loud, but it carried a weight that made his chest tremble. The hum was steady, calm, and almost gentle, like a whisper asking him to listen. He reached out with both hands this time, lifting the object slowly. It was warm. Too warm for something that looked so metallic. His heart thudded in his chest. The glow spread across his palms, traveling up his arms, lighting his skin in pale blue. Suddenly, a burst of sound echoed inside his mind. Not with his ears. Not through the air. But directly inside his thoughts. It was not a word. Not yet. It was a signal. A voice broken by distance, like a radio transmission full of static. But even through the distortion, Arjun felt something impossible. Someone was trying to reach him. His lips parted, but no sound came. His mind raced. Was he losing his sanity? Was this a hallucination from lack of sleep, or hunger, or stress? He pressed the object closer to his chest. The hum grew softer. The glow dimmed, almost like it understood his fear. For a long moment, he sat frozen, staring into the shifting light. Then, another shock. The light bent into shape. A small figure appeared in the air above the object. It was no bigger than a child's toy soldier, yet it was alive with movement. A tiny hologram stood before him. It was not human. Its body was long and thin, with arms that stretched lower than they should. Its head was narrow, with two bright eyes glowing white. It spoke, but the words cracked apart, broken into fragments of sound. Holder, chosen, protect. Arjun's blood ran cold. His hands shook. He almost dropped the object, but some unseen force kept him still. The figure flickered again. More symbols rushed into the air, spinning like a storm. Arjun tried to speak. What are you? Why me? His voice was weak, but the figure seemed to hear. It tilted its head. The light around it flickered once more, and then it spoke a single word, clear this time, without static. Human. The word echoed inside his skull, soft but sharp, like it had been carved directly into his thoughts. Arjun's knees weakened. He sat back on the bed, clutching the object to his chest. The glow dimmed, but the connection remained. He felt it deep in his mind, like a thread linking him to something far beyond Earth. And then silence. The hologram vanished. The room returned to darkness, lit only by the faint shimmer of the object. The air was still. Yet Arjun knew nothing would ever be the same. He was no longer alone. Something, somewhere, had chosen him. He sat in the silence, staring at the object, his body trembling. Fear battled with wonder inside him. But one thought rose above all the rest. If this thing was real, then he was part of something greater than his small, forgotten life. And that thought, terrifying and beautiful, refused to leave his mind. The city outside his window had gone quiet. Midnight was approaching, and the streets that once hummed with cars were now empty. Arjun sat in the corner of his small room, staring at the glowing object on the table. His body was tense, his breath shallow. The memory of the hologram still burned in his mind. The word human echoed like a ghost. He wanted to believe it was a dream, yet the object pulsed softly, reminding him that it was real. Too real. A sudden noise broke the silence. A faint scrape, like a shoe against metal, came from the alley below. Arjun froze. His window looked out over the narrow street where shadows moved between broken lamps. He listened carefully. Another sound followed. A soft click, then a whisper of fabric brushing against the wall. He stood slowly, his heart thudding. He peeked through the window, but the darkness revealed nothing. The object glowed brighter, casting light across his room. He quickly grabbed it and pressed it to his chest, afraid someone might see it from outside. The sounds grew closer. Not footsteps. Not random noise. Someone was searching. Arjun backed away from the window, eyes darting to the door. His phone lay on the table. He reached for it, but the screen flickered and went black. He tried again. Nothing. The battery had been full an hour ago. Now it was dead. His throat tightened. He felt cut off, alone, trapped. The object in his hand began to hum, louder than before. It was not warning him with words, but he understood. Something was near. Something was coming for it. The shadows outside shifted again. A figure moved across the rooftop across the street. For a split second, Arjun saw it. Tall, slender, almost human but not quite. Its head tilted unnaturally as it scanned the buildings below. Then it vanished into the dark. Arjun stumbled back, his chest tight with panic. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs would not move. He pressed his back against the wall, clutching the glowing object so hard his knuckles turned white. Then came the knock. 3 slow, heavy knocks on his door. The sound echoed in the silence of the room, each knock louder than the last. Arjun's breath caught in his throat. No one visited him. No one cared enough to knock at this hour. Whoever it was, they were not here for him. They were here for the object. The hum in his hands grew frantic, almost like a heartbeat in panic. The glow spread up his arms again, covering his skin in light. Arjun whispered to himself. No, no, no. This is not happening. The knock stopped. Silence. He dared to hope they had gone, but then the handle twisted. Slowly. Quietly. Someone was trying to open the door. Arjun backed deeper into the room, his eyes locked on the handle as it rattled. His chest burned with every breath. He had no weapon, no plan, only fear. Then, without warning, the door went still. No sound. No movement. Arjun waited. Seconds dragged like hours. Sweat ran down his face. The silence pressed harder than the knocking had. He almost wished the intruder would break the door, because the waiting was worse. Finally, a shadow slipped under the crack at the bottom of the door. It stretched across the floor, twisting unnaturally, as though it belonged to something that did not follow the rules of light. Arjun's stomach turned cold. The object pulsed in his hand, then released a sudden burst of energy. A flash of blue light filled the room. The shadow recoiled instantly, vanishing like smoke. Outside, the sound of rapid footsteps faded into the distance. Whoever it was, they were gone. For now. Arjun fell to his knees, trembling. His hands shook as he placed the object back on the table. The glow dimmed slowly, as if calming down after a battle. He wiped his face with shaking palms, his mind spinning. He was not safe. He was not alone. Something out there had followed the signal. Something had come looking. Arjun stared at the object, his chest rising and falling in sharp gasps. He whispered to himself, "What did I bring into my life?" The object gave no answer. It only pulsed gently, as though it was waiting. Arjun knew one thing. He could not pretend this was just a toy anymore. The unseen visitor had proven that. His life had already changed, and now the danger was real. The night felt longer than any he had ever lived through. The knocking, the shadow, the figure on the rooftop, all of it still burned in his memory. Arjun sat by the table, staring at the glowing object, afraid to touch it, yet unable to look away. The room was silent, but the silence no longer felt empty. It felt alive, as though someone else was breathing with him, unseen but near. Finally, with shaking hands, he reached out. His fingers brushed the object, and the glow surged once more. The light rose like a fountain, filling every corner of the room. Symbols appeared again, circling him in slow motion. They did not frighten him this time. Instead, they pulled him in. Then, the figure returned. The hologram flickered above the object, but it was clearer now. No longer a blur. No longer broken. The alien stood tall, its thin body wrapped in bands of shifting light. Its eyes glowed white, sharp yet calm, like two distant stars pulled close to Earth. Arjun froze, his chest tight. His lips parted, but no words came out. He had imagined this moment since childhood, but he never thought it could be real. The figure tilted its head, studying him. The silence stretched, heavy and fragile, until finally it spoke. "Human." The same word as before, but clearer. Stronger. It echoed not only in his ears, but in his mind, vibrating through every bone. Arjun swallowed hard. "What are you?" His voice was quiet, but steady this time. The figure raised a hand, thin and strange yet graceful. The symbols around them shifted into shapes of stars, galaxies, and worlds far beyond his imagination. The air shimmered with images. He saw planets with rings of fire, cities carved into mountains of crystal, ships as large as continents drifting across the void. He gasped, his eyes wide, unable to blink. His heart pounded with awe. This was no dream. This was truth. The figure's voice returned. "You hold key?" The words were slow, broken, yet filled with purpose. Arjun shook his head. "Me? I am no one. I just deliver food." His laugh was weak, nervous. "I do not even know why I picked this thing up." The alien stepped closer. Though it was made of light, Arjun felt its presence like heat against his skin. It raised its hand again, and a beam of light touched his chest. In that instant, memories not his own flooded his mind. He saw battles in space, ships shattering like glass under fire. He saw beings fleeing from shadows that swallowed whole worlds. He saw an army hunting the same object he now held in his hand. And at the center of it all, a single word rang clear. "Protector." Arjun staggered back, gasping for breath. His knees trembled, and he gripped the table to stay upright. "No, no, that cannot be me. You chose the wrong person. I cannot fight. I cannot save anyone." The figure's eyes glowed brighter. Its voice deepened, resonating like thunder and wind together. "Choice made. You, Holder." Tears stung Arjun's eyes. Fear and wonder battled inside him. He had lived a life of invisibility, forgotten by the world. And now, a force from beyond the stars had chosen him. The figure lowered its hand. The visions faded, but the weight of them stayed in his chest. The alien tilted its head once more, softer now, almost gentle. "Not alone," it said. Arjun stared into its glowing eyes. In that moment, fear loosened its grip. For the first time in years, he felt seen. Truly seen. The hologram flickered, its form fading. The last thing he heard was a whisper inside his mind. Protect, awaken. The light collapsed back into the object, leaving only a soft glow on the table. The room was dark again, but Arjun's world was no longer small. He sat there, trembling, breathing hard, but a fire had lit inside him. The visitor was real. The signal was real. And somehow, impossibly, the fate of more than Earth now rested in his hands. Morning came, but the sunlight brought no peace. Arjun had barely slept. His body was weak, yet his mind refused to rest. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the hologram. The word protector echoed inside him, over and over. He thought about throwing the object away, leaving it on the street, pretending none of this had ever happened. But each time his hand reached for the door, he froze. Something inside him whispered that it would not matter. Once chosen, he could not run from it. By afternoon, the city was alive again. The sound of traffic filled the air. Vendors shouted in the streets. Children ran past with plastic toys and sticky ice creams. The normal world carried on, blind to the storm building just out of sight. Arjun stepped outside, the object hidden in his jacket pocket. He tried to act normal, but every sound made him flinch. Every stranger's eyes felt sharp, like they were watching him too closely. Then he saw them. Two men stood at the corner of the street. Their suits were black, their shoes polished. They looked too clean for this dirty part of the city. They held no food bags, no shopping bags, no purpose that fit the scene. They only stood, scanning the crowd with cold eyes. Arjun's stomach tightened. He turned quickly, pretending to check his bike, but his heart raced. The object in his pocket pulsed once, faint but clear. It was warning him. When he glanced back, one of the men was already walking toward him. Calm. Direct. His face gave away nothing. Arjun climbed onto his motorbike, hands trembling on the handlebars. He started the engine, and the sound ripped through the street. The man in the black suit spoke into a small device on his wrist. That was enough. Arjun twisted the throttle and shot forward. The bike roared as he sped down the street. People shouted and jumped aside. Behind him, a black car screeched into motion, tires screaming against the road. Arjun's chest pounded as he weaved between rickshaws and taxis. The wind tore at his face. The car stayed close, too close. No matter how sharp he turned, it followed with perfect precision. He cut down a narrow lane, but the car did not slow. It crushed through crates and splintered wood, chasing him with impossible control. These were not ordinary men. They were trained, equipped, hunting him without mercy. Arjun's breath came in sharp gasps. He gripped the handlebars tight, his knuckles white. His jacket shifted, and the object pressed against his chest. It glowed brighter, filling him with strange energy. Then, without warning, it pulsed violently. The bike surged forward, faster than it had ever gone before. The engine screamed, but it did not stall. It felt alive, as though the object had poured power directly into the machine. Arjun shot through the lane, bursting onto a wider road. Horns blared as he cut between buses and trucks. His mind was sharp now, every turn, every movement guided by something beyond reflex. But the black car was still there. Always behind. Always closing in. He turned into another alley, desperate. His tires slipped on wet stone, but he steadied. The walls pressed tight on both sides. The car could not follow here. Relief flickered in his chest. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, fast, echoing on the rooftops above. Shadows darted across the walls. They were not just chasing by car. They were everywhere. Arjun's breath broke into a shout. Why me? Why? The object gave no answer, only pulsed harder, guiding him deeper into the maze of alleys. He followed blindly, every turn a choice between survival and capture. Finally, he reached a dead end. A massive gate of rusted iron blocked his path. The walls were too high. The sound of pursuit grew louder behind him. He pressed his back to the gate, chest heaving. He pulled the object from his pocket. It glowed like fire, brighter than the sun in his hands. The hologram flickered again, only for a second. A whisper entered his mind. Trust. Place. Arjun looked at the gate. His heart raced. He pressed the object against the metal. The iron trembled. Lines of light spread across its surface, glowing blue then white. With a groan, the entire gate slid open, revealing a hidden passage into darkness. Arjun gasped, eyes wide. Behind him, the men were close now, their shadows stretching across the walls. He had only one choice. He gripped the object tight, twisted the throttle, and drove into the unknown. The gate slammed shut behind him with a thunderous clang. The chase was not over. It had only begun. The tunnel was dark, silent except for the echo of his motorbike. Arjun's breath came fast, his chest burning from the chase. He did not know where the passage led. He only knew he had escaped for now. The walls around him glowed faintly with lines of blue light, as if the object in his pocket had awakened them. The bike's engine roared through the emptiness, but deep inside, he felt he was being guided. He was not lost. He was being led. The tunnel ended in a vast chamber. Arjun slowed the bike and stopped. His eyes widened as the headlamp lit the space. It was not a warehouse, not exactly. It was older, stranger, almost alive. The walls were carved with symbols that pulsed faintly like veins of light. And in the center, half buried in dust and silence, stood a great machine. It was taller than a building, shaped like a giant arc with a hollow center. Its surface was smooth, silver-black, and covered with markings similar to the ones the object had shown him before. Arjun climbed off the bike, his legs weak beneath him. The object pulsed in his pocket, stronger now, as if it recognized the machine. He stepped closer, heart pounding. His voice broke the silence. What is this place? The hologram flickered into life above the object once again. The alien figure appeared, clearer than ever, its glowing eyes fixed on him. This time, the voice carried weight. Core. Vessel. Protector. Arjun's throat went dry. His fingers tightened around the object. Protector, he whispered, almost to himself. The word that haunted him. The word that terrified him. The hologram raised its long hand and pointed to the center of the machine. A slot had opened, perfectly shaped for the object. Arjun staggered back. His voice shook. No. No, I cannot. I am just a delivery boy. I cannot fight your battles. I cannot save the world. You have chosen the wrong person. The figure's eyes glowed brighter. The room filled with visions once more. Arjun saw planets burning. He saw creatures of shadow tearing through cities. He saw humans screaming as darkness reached Earth. His heart broke as the images tore through his mind. The voice whispered again. No wrong choice made. Arjun dropped to his knees, clutching his head. Tears streamed down his face. He thought of his life. His small apartment. The long nights of delivering food to people who never knew his name. His parents far away, proud of him just for surviving. His dreams, broken and buried long ago. Now this. A destiny forced into his hands. He pressed his forehead against the cold floor. His body trembled. I am nobody, he whispered. Why me? The hologram flickered, softer now. The alien tilted its head. Its voice grew calm, almost gentle. Not nobody. Human. The single word cut through his despair. Simple. Clear. Yet powerful. Arjun raised his head slowly. His tears still fell, but his breath steadied. The alien's voice repeated inside him like a heartbeat. Human. He stood again, weak but resolute. His hand trembled as he pulled the object from his pocket. It pulsed brightly, answering his touch. He stared at it, his reflection shimmering in its light. He looked at the machine. The slot waited. The choice was clear. If he placed it inside, there was no turning back. He would step into a destiny that could kill him, or change him forever. If he refused, maybe he could run, maybe he could hide. But the visions showed him what would come. Earth would burn. Humanity would fall. The silence pressed against him, heavy and expectant. Arjun closed his eyes. He thought of his small life. His loneliness. His endless struggle to survive in a world that never noticed him. And then he thought of something else. A voice inside him, a truth he had always felt but never believed. That he was meant for more. He opened his eyes. His hands were steady now. He stepped forward. The object pulsed so bright it blinded him for a moment. He raised it high, then lowered it into the slot at the heart of the machine. The chamber shook. The floor trembled under his feet. Lines of light raced across the walls, spreading outward like veins carrying fire. The machine roared to life, dust falling like rain as it awakened. The hologram's voice filled the chamber, powerful and commanding. "Protector, awaken!" Arjun stumbled back as the machine blazed with light, but he did not run. Not this time. He stood tall, his chest rising and falling with fierce resolve. The choice had been made. And there was no going back. The machine roared to life. The chamber shook as if the earth itself was waking from a long sleep. Dust fell from the ceiling. The walls blazed with light, no longer cold stone but living veins of fire stretching into infinity. Arjun shielded his eyes, yet he could not look away. The object he had placed into the slot had melted into the machine, fusing as though it had always belonged there. Energy surged outward, filling the room, filling him. His chest burned. His veins felt alive with lightning. He staggered, clutching his arms as light crawled beneath his skin. It did not hurt. It overwhelmed. It consumed. It remade. The hologram appeared again, but larger now, towering above him. Its voice thundered through the chamber. "Protector, rise!" Arjun gasped, dropping to his knees. His reflection shimmered in the polished surface of the machine. But the face staring back was not the same as before. His eyes glowed faintly with blue fire. His skin shimmered with lines of light, like markings from another world. He clutched the floor, struggling to breathe. 1,000 images raced through his mind. He saw weapons of light. He saw stars torn apart by war. He saw the shadows that hunted across galaxies, hungry and endless. And at the center of it, he saw himself, standing between earth and destruction. "No," he whispered. His voice cracked. "I cannot carry this. I am just one man." But deep inside, a second voice spoke. Not the alien. Not the machine. His own. Steady, strong, undeniable. "You are human. That is enough." Arjun rose to his feet. His body trembled, but his spirit did not. He lifted his hands, and the machine answered. Plates of glowing metal shifted and unfolded around him. A shell of armor wrapped across his body, piece by piece, like it had been waiting centuries only for him. His breath caught. The weight of the armor was heavy, yet he felt lighter than ever. His heart thundered. His fear burned away. For the first time, he felt power, not borrowed, not stolen, but his. The chamber doors behind him shook violently. The men in black had found their way inside. Shadows slipped across the walls. The enemy was close. Arjun turned, his glowing eyes fixed on the door. He was no longer running. No longer hiding. The armor pulsed with the same light as the machine, ready, alive. The hologram's voice whispered one last time. "Human, no longer forgotten. Protector of Earth. Protector of stars." The door exploded inward, and the men stormed the chamber. They raised their weapons, sharp and cold. But when they saw him, they hesitated. Arjun stepped forward, each movement steady and fearless. The ground shook with his stride. He raised his hand, and energy crackled at his fingertips. The hunters had chased a delivery boy. But what stood before them now was something else. The first human chosen. The first protector. Arjun's voice was calm, yet it carried like thunder. I am ready. Light erupted around him, filling the chamber, blinding the intruders. The machine's roar shook the world above. And in that storm of brilliance, Arjun's small life burned away, replaced by destiny. The ordinary food delivery boy was gone. What remained was a legend in the making.